Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Jonathan Siddharth, the CEO and co-founder of Turing AI. Jonathan, would you tell us about what Turing AI does?
Great. It's great to meet you, Dr. Gleb. I'm Jonathan Siddharth, CEO and co-founder of Turing, which is Turing.com. At Turing, our mission is to use AI to unleash the world's untapped human potential. And we believe that traditional recruiting, traditional ways of building engineering teams is over. If you look at the traditional model, whether it's working with a tech services company or a labor marketplace or a recruiting firm, you find that when you're building an engineering team, it's super slow for starters. It takes weeks and months. And often it's because most of these platforms tap into a very limited talent pool. And second, there's very shallow vetting. Like when you are looking to find the right engineer or the right engineering team, often to find one engineer, you have to interview like 30 people. And third, after you found that perfect team, there are very little controls on productivity, quality, etc. after you've put the team in place. So we asked ourselves, what if we could solve all of this with an AI-first talent cloud? What if you could push a button to spin up your engineering team as easily as you'd spin up servers on AWS? And what if you had AI-powered deep vetting and matching to automatically vet developers at scale from a global talent pool and match them with the right opportunities? And what if you had good controls for productivity, security, compliance after the match, right? This is why we built Turing. It's the world's most deeply vetted developers and teams matched by AI. The company became a unicorn very recently. Thank you. More recently, we've been raising at a 4 billion valuation cap, and we have some wonderful clients today like Disney, Johnson & Johnson, Rivian, etc., building on top of Turing. And it's awesome to have like about 2 million developers signed up on Turing today. So it's been a fun journey so far.
Sounds like a fun journey. Now, one of the challenges that, of course, is happening with development is thinking about hybrid work and remote work. Yeah. How do you see developer teams that are hired for fully remote positions being hired effectively? What do you need to think about versus hiring them for hybrid positions versus fully office-centric positions? So can you lay those three distinct areas out for me?
Yeah. So you mentioned remote, hybrid, and fully office-based. I think the first step is to be very intentional about what job can be done in a fully remote fashion versus what job needs to be done in an office. And I would make a distinction also in remote between remote centralized and remote distributed. Remote centralized being you have a team still in an office, but perhaps in a different a more cost-efficient location than, say, in the Bay Area? Or do you actually mean fully distributed, where there is no office, everybody's collaborating as a distributor, right? I think that what the pandemic showed us is that for a vast majority of jobs, a distributed team is a good default. And I would emphasize the word default. Like, I don't mean a distributed team never gets together and meets each other. I think there's a lot of value in meeting as needed, but a distributed team is a great default. So definitely for software engineering jobs, for software engineering roles, I think we've reached a stage where you can work in Silicon Valley without needing to live in Silicon Valley, which is going to be wonderful for people all over the US, like who are not sort of living between San Francisco to San Jose. Sure. I think the opportunity radius is going to expand for talented people. It's also amazing for people all over the world to participate in Silicon Valley and the incredible wealth creation that we see. So software engineering, I think, is one sector that I think a distributed team absolutely is the right way to go. I do feel there is still value even in software engineering teams for some level of like being in broadly the same time zone or close to the same geographic area at the very senior leadership levels, right?
Okay.
I think there is some value there. One thing I found fascinating is that there used to be this myth that a sales team, for example, do they have to be in an office or do they have to be distributed? I think pre-pandemic, there was the prevailing wisdom in Silicon Valley was a sales team has to be in the same office to feel the same energy. But the thing that we've all realized, and we've realized firsthand at Turing, is that even with a sales team, a distributed team works, a remote distributed team works. As long as you have like a good cadence of quarterly meetups in person for training, onboarding, things like that. There are probably some jobs that are more hardware oriented. If you're building cars, if you're building smartphones, if you're building rockets, like there might be a reason to actually stay close to the hardware. Like I feel like for those jobs, I think an office-oriented job makes sense. So I would not say remote work is the norm for every company. I do think it's the norm for almost all software-only companies.
Now, I helped 23 companies transition to hybrid work, remote work, figuring out the return to office if they're deciding on hybrid work. And a number of software company leaders who I talked to express concerns about collaboration and innovation if their teams don't work in an office. What would you tell them?
So I think the key to collaboration and innovation is having good systems for communication and aligning people around priorities and goals. And I think the thing that a distributed team forces you to do is to be excellent at communication at a company-wide level. Communication was always really important, but a distributed team really helps you build that muscle. For example, at Turing, we think very intentionally about what are our OKRs for the quarter, what is our product roadmap for the quarter, how do we document our product roadmap, how do we document our progress towards that product roadmap. In an office-only culture, you might get away with not good asynchronous communication. You'll just bring some people together and talk about it. People will remember maybe 50% of what's discussed or less, and maybe some of it will get actioned on. But a remote distributed team helps you like level up your communication game, if you will. So I think both collaboration as well as innovation is just solved with really excellent communication and alignment on goals. And it just forces managers to be much better managers in many ways. Like that's what I see. I do feel like that it's true that one thing that becomes challenging in a distributed team is forming authentic relationships with your people. Or like for a manager, it is important to build an authentic relationship based on trust with their reports, with their peers. And that can get challenging in a distributed team. But the mitigation for that is being intentional about bringing people together on a cadence. Remote work does not mean you never meet. That's silly, right? Of course you have to meet. Of course you have to build relationships. For example, I have some one-on-ones in person. We have a cadence in which we bring our senior leadership team together, our exec team together. So you have to put in the work to build those relationships. So I would say I mean, much like there are bad office cultures, there are also bad remote cultures. It's up to the managers and leaders and employees in the company to make sure that you're thinking through the communication architecture the right way and thinking through the human relationships the right way and being intentional about solving for that. I would bet on a high performance distributed team to outperform an office team all day long. Like you benefit from, firstly, like casting a wider net in terms of the talent radius that you're able to attract. for example, if let's say there is company A that is based in, let's say, San Francisco, and says they're only going to recruit people who live 15 minutes from the office, who can commute 9 to 5 and come work in their office in San Francisco, and company B that says, hey, we're going to recruit the best people across America, across the world. You can be in Ohio, you can be in New York, you can be in San Diego, but we just want the best people. And we are going to get together periodically as needed. We have really good communication alignment systems at work. And I would put this question to you, Dr. Gleb, where, I mean, which company is more likely to attract great people? Like somebody who's, I mean, if you sample it at random, one company that looked for people who happen to live 15 minutes from the office versus another company that said across America, all good, across the world, all good. Which company is going to have better talent?
Yeah, I put that question often to the leaders I work with to try to help them see that if they want good talent and also don't want to pay for the cost of living in San Francisco, which is another consideration, that is definitely something to think about. Now,
the difference
as we're thinking,
it's the difference between like a city team versus a national team that's representing right? Which is going to be better.
Yeah, I like that. I like that analogy. Now, as we're seeing the rise of generative AI, what I think will happen, and I'm curious what you think will happen, is that will facilitate more remote work and hybrid work, because it will make it easier for people to communicate more effectively. As you said, communication is the basis for collaboration and for innovation. And I see generative AI as facilitating more effective communication, therefore decreasing the need for the office that previously was felt by some people who said, well, I need office for collaboration, innovation. But if you have generative AI that facilitates your collaboration, your innovation, your information sharing, what are your thoughts about that?
That is super interesting, Dr. Gleb. So I think you're onto something, that generative AI will really up-level communication. And I can see a few ways in which generative AI, particularly impacting communication in a remote, distributed, or a hybrid team. I think one thing that has happened, this is like a quiet revolution that sort of happened without us paying attention to it, which is all meetings today are Zoom meetings by default. This is something that we would not have taken into account pre-pandemic.
Sure.
And this has an important implication, which is if it's a Zoom meeting, just like this conversation you and I are having, it can be recorded. And if it can be recorded, it can be transcribed. If it can be transcribed, it can be summarized and indexed and made searchable. And if it can be summarized and indexed, like I can absolutely imagine you and I having a conversation where we automatically get a summary of what questions did Dr. Gleb ask, what questions did, how did Jonathan respond to that, what were the key points from the conversation. And I can imagine me sharing that email automatically, perhaps, with our exec team, right? And to your point about ensuring more lossless communication, I think generative AI and a lot of machine learning, to be honest, will help. And probably also being more proactive in communication. Like if it were up to me, I might think it's too much work to synthesize exactly the key beats from this conversation and share it with the right folks. But I can totally imagine an AI assistant telling me, hey, Jonathan, you discussed distributed teams versus hybrid teams versus in-office teams with Dr. Gleb. You should share that with these 5 other clients, like who are also interested in that same topic. And maybe I look at the email that's already drafted. Maybe an AI has written 80% of the email. I fix a few tweaks here and there, and then it goes out. I can imagine it helping there. So I think, I mean, I'm sure you might have seen like the Office 365 Copilot features.
Integration.
I think it's going to be wonderful for productivity. I think every human is going to be 10 to 100x more productive. And anything that massively improves communication is great for remote teams and distributed teams. And it's such an exciting time. Like we are thinking about, for example, at Turing, ways in which our sales conversations could be more efficiently tracked, automated in terms of how we capture data, how we update databases like Salesforce. So I think you're onto something. I think generative AI is going to be a big tailwind for communication, which will again lift all boats as it relates to remote work.
And to come back to what Turing does, how do you think AI, generative AI, this version, other generative AI varieties will impact hiring, both of remote developers, non-remote developers? What do you think will be the impact there? What do you see as the future?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take your question in three parts in terms of what does this mean for Turing. This is something that me and our exec team spent quite a bit of time thinking through. So the first part is, what does it mean for our clients, right? So I believe AI transformation is the new digital transformation. So every company is going to become an AI company, or I should say most companies are going to become AI companies in some way, shape, or form. For some companies, it'll represent an existential threat. In some companies, it'll represent a massive opportunity. But every company is going to have to come up with an AI strategy. Like every CEO is probably asking their exec team, okay, what does this ChatGPT moment mean for us, right? And we are noticing that different companies are at different levels of maturity in leveraging AI. There are some companies that first need to get started with ensuring that their app is architected the right way to collect the right data, to train machine learning models, making sure you have the right cloud backend, the right data analytics backend. So at Turing, we've launched an AI practice, including an AI advisory, to help companies make that journey to get to where they want to go, right? So AI transformation is the new digital transformation, and we see among our clients, including Johnson & Johnson, Disney, Rivian, a wide variety of industries are getting transformed by AI. Storytelling is going to be transformed by AI. The way we make movies is going to get transformed. The way we do drug discovery is going to be transformed. The way medical diagnosis happens is going to be transformed. At Turing, we've actually shared a few white papers on what ChatGPT means for healthcare, what it means for banking, what it means for retail. And we've shared our point of view. So we are seeing a massive influx in demand for AI engineers and AI engineering teams. So that's one trend that's happened. A lot of demand with all the wonderful work that OpenAI and many other folks in the industry have sort of unlocked. The second thing that we're seeing is there is a lot of excitement for developers to start using these tools to become more productive.
Yeah.
So I believe that we're about to see the era of a software engineer who's 10 to 100x more productive, right? That's going to be wonderful for the world. I don't think we can fully fathom what a 100x software engineer looks like. Because when that happens, it's going to be like being a kid during Halloween. It'll be wonderful products, wonderful apps, products improve at such an insane velocity, and we'll see new drugs discovered, new cures discovered. It's going to be a golden era for humanity. But it starts with generative AI, amplifying the productivity of a developer. So at Turing, we want to help every software engineer get the benefit of what we call an AI-powered exoskeleton. So we are thinking about how we're going to train developers, get them ready. What tools and workflows do we build for developers to thrive in this AI era? Right. So we are launching. We're doing some initiatives to help the 2 million developers on Turing become AI enhanced. Right. We envision a future where clients can choose between having a human developer or what we call a Turing developer, somebody who's an indistinguishable mix of human and AI, who's that much more leveraged. Right. We might have a picture of maybe a developer in an Iron Man or Iron Woman suit versus a more regular human, right? And we think more and more clients will opt for AI-enhanced developers rather than, let's call it a classic developer. So that's the second theme. Like, I think we're seeing a lot of interest and excitement among developers to take advantage of these new tools to be more productive, more effective. The third interesting idea here is, I think it changes how you evaluate a software engineer. For example, I saw a research paper about how some of these new LLMs are able to pass a software engineering interview at a Google level, like like somebody who's interviewing at Google, like the classic sort of coding problems, challenges you would give them. It was passing it at a pretty high level. So the provocative headline was, okay, AI is good enough to get a job at Google, right? Now, it's kind of tongue in cheek because AI might be good enough to get a job at Google, but AI is not there to do the job at Google today.
Sure.
Like, we're far from that, right? And I feel like it speaks a lot to how we thought about evaluating software engineers.
Yeah.
And so at Turing, we are thinking about, like, we are constantly at the forefront of how do we use machine learning to evaluate software engineers at scale in a way that accurately reflects their ability to excel on the job. And I think in the past, we've been doing like these, we've been taking some shortcuts. When I say we, I mean as an industry, we've been taking some shortcuts in terms of how we've evaluated software engineers before. And some of these AI-based systems are showing us the shortcomings and sort of the gaps to vetting. If an AI can pass the vetting but not do the job, right? Like so I think we're about to see some interesting innovation. Turing's going to be at the forefront of many of that in terms of evaluating software engineers for the AI era, and this also includes, I think in the future, every software engineer is going to work alongside an AI. Like there's going to be an AI-based pair programmer that every engineer is about to have. And I think as the day-to-day of a software engineer changes, we have to adapt how we evaluate a software engineer when you're hiring an engineer and when you're evaluating their performance on an ongoing basis. So those are the three sort of ways I think about it. But what an exciting time.
It's really an exciting time, and I'm glad that you shared how you're thinking about this in your company. As we're wrapping up, are there any last words with which you wish to leave our audience?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gleb. And if you're building an engineering team to build your product roadmap, I'd encourage you to look at Turing.com. We offer the world's most deeply vetted developers and teams matched by AI. And our clients use Turing in two ways, either to augment an existing team or to build an entire team. And we are also launching specific services around AI, cloud, and application engineering. So I encourage people building engineering teams who value high quality while also being efficient to check out Turing. And thank you for inviting me to be on your show.
Thank you for coming, Jonathan. And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show and leave a review. It helps others discover the show and it helps us improve the show. All right, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.
Thank you, Dr. Gleb.